Chapter 22 Tensions. Quasi perked up at the sound of the Octo Alert and did a front flip out of his room. It had been the third time this week that the Octo Alert sounded, and Quasi had the idea that the captain really liked to use it. Maybe even a little too much. Quasi arrived at the HQ, doing another front flip as he escaped the Octo chute. He got out of the way, just in case anyone else would be coming through that same chute. The captain stood in his regular pose, at ease but with a ramrod straight back and his paws behind his back. Dashi, like the few times before, was in a chair nearby the dashboard. Dashi. Dashboard. Quasi cracked himself up sometimes. Quasi looked behind him. Seemed like everyone was here. "All right, everyone," Captain Markle said. "Our mission is to check up on a school of sardines. It is a rather large group of them, and they can be quite skittish, so everyone needs to be careful. We need to be able to gain their trust. The most important thing is that Peso gives them a checkup. And if we can convince them to answer Shellington's questions and get data, that will be a bonus." Captain Barnacles cleared his throat. Quasi hoped that the polar bear wasn't getting a sore throat or something. Is it possible for a polar bear to even get a cold? Quasi's position, what his role actually was, came back to mind. If he did get sick, wouldn't that technically mean that Quasi would temporarily take over? Captain Barnacles hadn't really talked to him about that ever since the first day they met. Didn't stop Quasi from wondering, though. For this mission, not everyone will need to participate, and some tasks in the future will be like this as well. If there is an Octo Alert, and I don't specify a particular crew member to come, assume that all paws are to be on deck. Quasi appreciated the pirate slang. Everyone did an affirmative, and Captain Barnacles continued. This mission will have two teams. Peso and Quasi, take the Gup E. Shellington, you and I will take the Gup A. Wait, Quasi thought. His eye lifted towards the ceiling, and he lifted his head slightly back, trying to remember which Gup was the Gup E. He didn't care if anyone stared. Oh, right. That's the medical submarine. Wait, what? Quasi whirled towards the medic and, sure enough, the penguin was looking away, down at the floor. He didn't look that happy. Wait, Captain, Quasi couldn't help but ask. He looked at the leader. Could we, switch places or something? I'd really love to help out with science doohickeys and stuff. He wanted to facepalm at just how smooth and inconspicuous that was. If the captain caught it, he didn't make a show of it. Sorry, Quasi, he replied. Shellington's gonna need a lot of muscle to move some of the equipment, so it makes more sense if we paired up like this. Quasi had the growing suspicion that there was another reason, but he just grumbled and nodded. He didn't bother to look at Peso's reaction. It would probably be something negative anyway. What did he do to deserve this? Line break. What did he do to deserve this? Peso was in the guppy, standing right next to him. The moment he and the cat had gotten into the gup, the pirate immediately took control of the steering, and Peso didn't have the guts to say anything about it. Not that Peso even wanted to drive one of those things. He'd probably have a panic attack and crash. Quasi drove through the water, past fish and other creatures. According to the radar on the gup's dash, it looked like the school should be a few miles ahead of them. The gup was quiet. Absolutely quiet. Peso looked down, fiddled with his flippers, rocked back and forth on his claws. He finally dared to look at his neighbor. The pirate kept looking forward, his brows furrowed. His paws were tight around the steering wheel, clenched taut. Flappity flippers, Peso wanted to get out as soon as he can. The pirate looked angry. But why? That growing suspicion that he caused it rose up in Peso, but his own brows furrowed. How on earth did he cause Quasi to get mad? If he even is mad. Peso literally didn't do anything. But then again, Quasi wanted to switch places with the captain. He didn't want to be on Peso's team. If that's true, does the pirate hate him? Peso's heart froze. An angry pirate was a dangerous pirate. The cat could technically jump him at any time. Peso's breathing went faster, but at the pirate's glance, Peso forced himself under control. He'd have to be even more careful than ever before to not tick him off. Nothing seemed to be working. A dark mass appeared in view, far off into the distance. Peso squinted a bit. It seemed to be moving. That must be the school, Peso thought. Should he let the pirate know? Should he say that out loud? But the intercom beat him before he could even make a decision. Quasi, Peso, the school should be about a mile ahead. I see it, the pirate replied. The intercom went silent, and in a few moments, the gup came to a stop. We're here, Quasi clipped. Peso nodded. Okay. Ugh, he hated when his voice gets squeaky like that. Makes him sound like a weak child. Quasi only gave a raised eyebrow before activating his helmet. Peso did the same thing, pressing a button on his collar. Strong glass. Able to handle thousands of pounds of water, and then some, Tweak had said. Came up from the collar and encompassed his head. Peso took in a breath. It seemed to be working. The air should be coming from the air tank strapped to his back. Only one way to really be sure, though. Quasi pressed another button, and the Guppy's windshield opened, flooding the small submarine with water. Peso held his breath moments before it opened, just in case the helmet didn't hold up when the water came rushing in. But seeing that his head was still dry, he took a breath and began to breathe normally. Well, are you coming or not? Quasi was floating outside the Gup, looking unamused. Wow, that cat's fast. Yes, he stuttered, following the pirate close behind. They had parked a few meters away from the school, and as they swam closer, the Gup A arrived. Captain Barnacles and Shellington soon joined them. The captain looked out into the crowd of fish. All right, first things first. We have to gain their trust. Captain Barnacles looked at his teammates. Shellington, Peso, come with me. We'll try to talk to them. Quasi, you stay with the Gups. But if we need anything, I'll call you in, the captain said. It wasn't stern, but it was authoritative. Quasi grit his teeth. Aye, Captain. Seeing the pirate like this put Peso on edge. What's his problem? It wasn't just him. Quasi seemed to be acting like that to the others. What's with him? But the three of them swam away before he could figure out why. Line break. Quasi was ticked. There was no other way around it, no cozy way of saying it. What was everyone's problem? Quasi knew the captain didn't want him to be part of the negotiations. He had called him out on this mission just for him to float around? And yeah, maybe the captain wanted him later on or something, but why couldn't he join them? What, was he so scary that the school would hightail it if he came near? That at the sight of his eye patch, they'll immediately lose all trust in them? Quasi stilled. He could, technically, take off the eye patch. Maybe then, there wouldn't be a reason for the school to run away. And maybe then, the Octonauts wouldn't stare at him strangely when they thought he wasn't looking. Maybe they would talk to him like a normal creature. Maybe Peso wouldn't have fearful eyes every time they would be in the same room. Maybe he wouldn't have to pretend that he's fine being in his room all day, or being in the guppy, or swinging on vines alone. Maybe, just maybe. But Quasi clenched his fist. That wouldn't be fair. This was who he was. The eye patch was a symbol of Calico Jack. His grandfather had it, and Quasi wanted to honor him with one himself. The pirate life was Quasi's life, and he couldn't just change it for someone else's wishes. But a question came into Quasi's mind, eating away at him until his head hurt and ears twitched. Why should he stay here? Line break. The talk went well, much to the captain's pleasure. At first, the school was a bit finicky, but once Peso had showed them his medical kit, they were all ears, although they technically didn't have any visible ones. Although it was helpful, a small twinge got into the polar bear's gut. It was sad how much sea creatures starved for medical care. It wasn't that much better for the polar bears. They usually had to get their checkups when they were more to the south, like Alaska and Russia, before they did their yearly migration. But it was medical care, and it was yearly, so that was technically good. It was just terrible if a polar bear was deathly ill. The captain's thoughts drifted to another octonaut, but he pushed it away. That creature hadn't brought it up, so it wasn't for him to push. Peso had immediately set to work, and the fish created a line. Shellington started swimming back to the gups for the equipment. I'll help Shellington and call Quasi to assist you, Captain Barnacles told Peso before turning away. Pirates tended to roam in these waters, so he was afraid that the school would associate Quasi with his sleazy counterparts. This shouldn't be the norm, though. A lot of oceanic areas weren't as heavily influenced by pirates. But now that the Octonauts had gained the school's trust, they could convince them that Quasi was trustworthy. Wait! There was panic in Peso's voice. The captain snapped his head back to the medic. Is something the matter? He asked, startled. Peso didn't look at him, rummaging through his medical bag. Is it okay if you don't call Quasi? Captain Barnacles wasn't expecting that. Why not? Well, I'm fine here, he rambled, and Quasi isn't really good at medical stuff. Captain Barnacles frowned at that. If he felt that about Quasi, he shouldn't say that in public. And he'll probably be able to help you guys a lot more, and I'm seriously fine here. Peso looked up at Captain Barnacles, and there was complete fear in his eyes. Please? This didn't feel right. There was something wrong here. There was obviously a rift between Peso and Quasi. The cat had held reservations from pairing up with the medic, after all, and now Peso was doing the same thing. He'd have to get to the bottom of this. But he glanced at the school of fish, countless eyes watching the conversation, and he looked back at Peso's terrified face. All right, he doesn't have to join you this time, the captain said. But I cannot let this happen in the future. We are all a team, so we all should be comfortable working together. Captain Barnacle swam away, not seeing the thoughtful look that crossed Peso's face, before he looked down again and began his medical practice. By the time Captain Barnacles arrived at the Gups, Quasi was helping Shellington with the equipment, and the captain didn't ask any questions when Captain Barnacles told him that he'd help Shellington for the rest of the mission. The more Captain Barnacles studied the cat as they worked, the more he could feel the tension practically radiating off of him. Quasi's teeth clenched, and he moved the equipment recklessly. Shellington asked him a couple times to be careful, and Quasi would be for a minute, then become agitated again. Soon enough, that irritation rubbed off on Shellington as well. The tension seemed to be rising higher and higher. Captain Barnacles had to do something soon, or else this could turn ugly. "I think that's enough for today," Captain Barnacles said. "What?" Shellington was incredulous. "But we're not finished yet." "Oh dear." Captain Barnacles hoped he didn't just make it worse. "We'll continue this tomorrow." Captain Barnacles made sure to keep his voice level. "Peso isn't done checking up on the school either. It was a large group. So we're going to have to come back here anyway. I say we should rest up and mentally prepare ourselves for tomorrow." If they gave him a suspicious look, especially the cat, with the way his ears flicked towards him like that, Captain Barnacles made sure not to acknowledge it. "All right, sir," Shellington said, a bit dejectedly, which couldn't help but make Barnacle's chest twinge a bit, before turning to dismantle his equipment. Quasi wordlessly followed, but not without giving a final glare. Captain Barnacles didn't like this, not one bit. At least it wasn't downright insubordination. The captain just needed to make sure that it didn't come to that. He had a feeling it wouldn't, though. They were all good creatures, so how could it get that bad? Line break. It was taking forever to pack up. Shellington had brought so much stuff, Quasi didn't know the names of half the gizmos, that it was taking a long time to migrate everything back to the Gups, even with the captain's help. Granted, it didn't feel that long when they were taking everything out, but he figured it was because the captain dampened the spirits all the more. That polar bear can get so annoying, though still not as much as his feathered friend. Quasi couldn't lie to himself that he spent the larger part of the past few hours thinking about socking the medic in the beak. Not that Quasi would do that, mind you. Maybe he would, if Peso was an armed opponent and not so much of a weakling. But yow! Peso was so annoying! Troubling, a voice said in the back of his mind, but he didn't acknowledge it. It would bring other things like loss and loneliness and poverty and listlessness. That wouldn't do. He had to be just like Calico Jack, and that meant nothing troubled him. He just hoped that he would be able to pull it off. "Ready to go?" the captain asked as they put in the last of the equipment. Shellington was going to wipe his brow, but instead his paw hit the glass helmet. "Oh, yes, Captain," Shellington replied, caught off guard. "All right, let's get going then." They all went into their assigned Gups, and soon Quasi was consumed into the quiet again. The Guppy was silent as he drove, following the Gup A, the same picture as before, but now with seawater dripping off the cat and penguin. Quasi had half the mind to shake off the water, like any able-bodied cat would. Maybe he should flick more water on the penguin. Peso was going to ignore his existence anyway. But then, that wouldn't prove anything. In fact, it would prove to Peso that he was an evil good-for-nothing. He couldn't afford that. So he grit his teeth. He'd been doing it so much that his jaw hurt, and he ignored it all, even though it's getting harder and harder to do so. He'd just have to wait until they reached the octopod. Then, he could slink away and separate himself from that condescending, self-righteous... Look out! Quasi instinctively slammed the brakes, and the Gup squealed as it tried to slow down. The Gup turned a bit, steering off course, and Peso slammed into him from the force. Quasi saw a huge tail accompanied by a low call. The Gup finally stopped, only a couple feet away from a humpback whale, a whole pod of them. As soon as Quasi got his bearings, he roughly pushed Peso off of him. "Hey!" Peso reacted. He staggered a bit, then righted himself. If Quasi hadn't known any better, he would have said that Peso was peeved. Great. Join the club. He didn't have to yell like that. Quasi started driving again, going around the whales. He didn't care if his tone wasn't civil. "You're lucky we didn't crash into that thing because of it," says the one who wasn't even paying attention. Quasi's mind froze. So Peso finally did it. Finally said something. "What did you say?" Peso wilted under the gaze, shying away as if he had been hit. "Oi, I'm talking to you. Why don't you treat me like everyone else?" "I'm not treating you any differently." "Oh yeah, right, and I'm the King of England." They neared the entrance to the octopod. Peso didn't say anything. He never says anything. It's just quiet and quiet and quiet. Peso was driving him insane. They finally surfaced. The launch bay showed through the window. Peso's flipper twitched, and he lunged towards the button that would open the windshield. Quasi grabbed it before he pressed it. "You have a problem with me?" he challenged. He tightened his grip on the flipper, and Peso screamed, this pathetic scream, and tried to wrench his flipper away. Quasi only gripped it tighter. His claws were itching to come out. Peso tried taking a step back, but the cat pulled him and grabbed his shoulders tightly. Peso struggled. "Let go of me! Why are you acting like this?" Quasi practically shook him. "Did I do anything to you? Let go! Is it because I'm a pirate?" Peso flinched at the word. It was because of that. Because of who he was. Quasi wanted to punch Peso, hurt him. All of his high road mentality could go to the curb. He wanted to scream and throw a fit and throw chairs around. But instead, he found his eyes stinging. And of course, it was then that the penguin looked at him. Peso stopped, his eyes gone wider, his jaw slacked. Was Calico proud of him now? Quasi's paws went slack and still. Peso kept staring at him, full-blown shocked now. Quasi felt a lump in his throat. What was wrong with him? He couldn't take that stare anymore. He roughly pushed Peso away, opened the gup, and jumped out. He could still feel those pitying eyes follow him as he left the bay. Quasi didn't need pity. So what if he was all alone? So what? He was that way before. He could do it again. He would have to. Because there was no one else like him. He knew that for sure now. The tears kept threatening to spill, but it was only until he came to the solitude of his room that he allowed them to quietly fall. Line break. Tunip had made him a cup of cocoa, but it was cold by now. Peso swirled the contents with a spoon. He didn't have the heart to drink it. Tunip had left hours ago. Quasi's face never left his mind. He kept seeing it, right in front of him. To say that Quasi's reaction blew him away was an understatement. It had went right to his core. To see so much sadness, so much despair and loneliness. Peso had never thought the pirate was capable of that. He clenched the cup tightly with both flippers, growling under his breath. That was his problem, wasn't it? He hadn't thought Quasi was capable of emotions, that he was just some empty shell that was only interested in harming others. Peso had vowed to help any creature, regardless of species. How could he be such a proponent and so open to different species, but not give someone else with a different outlook a chance? Even if he didn't agree with the pirate way of life, and, let's be honest, Quasi never acted like the stealing murderers that constituted the pirate population. He should have known that they were like everyone else. Creatures who had emotions, who had hopes, fears, joys, and sorrows. Creatures who were just like him. And yes, he didn't have to condone the thieving ways of pirates, but for Pete's sake, Quasi didn't do anything. And now he had hurt another member of his crew. What had he done? Peso sighed, twirling the spoon again. He's gonna have to fix this, somehow. He just hoped it could be fixed.